I'm Elle Embers, and this is Cosmic Curiosities.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cosmic Curiosities. I have exciting news this week. My books are now officially open for QHHT past life regression sessions in the Brisbane area. So, with that being said, if you would like to lean into your curiosities about time travel and experience lives through different times, places, or even dimensions, to gain insight into your soul's personal journey, send me a message, or you can book via my website, lembers.com. And for those of you that are not in the Brisbane area, don't worry, I haven't forgotten you. I will soon be offering BQH sessions online, so stay tuned for more information on that shortly. But as for now, let's dive into this week's episode. This week, we're talking about generational trauma. I know, right? Sounds like a bit of a heavy topic, but as we've learnt in other episodes, trauma can be caused by, yes, a horrific event, but it can also be caused by everyday experiences and environmental conditioning that has installed beliefs in us that may be limiting. And no matter how great our childhoods or our families are, generational trauma is something that we've all experienced to some extent. Today, I'm joined by holistic counselor, spiritual therapist, and most importantly, mother of two, Miisha. Miisha's years of experience in holistic counseling, therapy, and early childhood development helps her to support and teach therapy in a way that is easy to understand and implement into our lives. While also being a mother, she's on the journey of healing herself and breaking the chains of her own generational trauma, to educate herself and others in how to heal from it and how to better support the next generation and prevent them from experiencing the same traumas that we did. Well, with that being said, hell yeah, let's break some chains. Miisha, thanks so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to talk about these topics today.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get started, did you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Miisha, or Miisha Jade, and I am a holistic spiritual therapist. I am a single mum to two kids, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I kind of teach therapy in a way that hopefully I intend it to be very easy to understand and very easy to implement into your life so that you can make those changes that you are wanting or desiring to have for the longevity of your life.
Yeah. So I guess being a mum and raising children in the next generation with a bit more of a spiritual mindset, what is generational trauma? Can you tell us a little bit about what generational trauma is and how people are dealing with this?
So generational trauma is when one person can experience a traumatic event or anything really, and then it gets passed on to the generation and generation. And people have often thought that generational trauma is just like abuse, like physical abuse, sexual abuse, alcohol abuse, but it's more than that. Abuse can be, or a traumatic experience that then creates the trauma in your life, can be finances. If you have a generation of people struggling with finances, that creates a trauma response, and that continues through generations and generations. If you have unhealthy relationships and then you're witnessing that as a child, that's a traumatic experience because you're seeing parents either fighting all the time, not talking to each other because they don't get along, but they're wanting to because, that kind of belief of we stay together for the kids. But that is creating a traumatic environment for the children that's what they see as normal, and then that gets passed on to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. So generational trauma can be abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, but it can also be the simple things which aren't really simple of financial trauma, the environment of where you're living. Like if you're not living in a household that feels safe for a child. There's like even parents that force their kids to eat food and, you know, you're not leaving that table until everything's eaten off that plate, or restricting your food because your parent thinks that you're overweight or you're too big to fit into like society standards of what you should be looking like. So then they reduce your food. Like that is trauma that then gets passed on through generation and generation because you see that as your norm, and then therefore that's how you raise your children, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, there's more to it than just those big things of abuse that can be just little experiences. Like I remember being a kid and being like, no, you have to eat this. You have to eat this. You know, there's kids in Africa that would kill for what's on your plate. You grow up just thinking, I have to finish this. I have to finish this. And even going to restaurants, and you'd force yourself as an adult to finish a meal because you paid for it and you have to finish it. And if you don't finish it, it's wasteful. Like, just growing up with that mentality. And yeah, I think that's such a huge thing that people don't realize.
Yeah, but it's even like the self-control you think of as an adult. Like you can sit there and eat a tub of ice cream and then you beat yourself up about it. Or you eat a whole packet of Tim Tams or biscuits or chocolate because you have no self-control. And if you go back to your early years of life, what was the relationship or the dynamic between your parent and you when it came to your food? That in your body is trauma, because somewhere inside of you, you either think, one, I can't waste it, which has been my mentality, especially when I don't have a man in the house to eat the leftovers, then I eat the leftovers because I don't want them to go to waste, because wasting it is money wasted. And throwing it out is throwing out your money. So you eat it, you finish it. So my mentality is I don't want to force the kids to finish it, but therefore I will finish it because I don't want to waste it. Yeah. And that is your body still in a trauma, even though it's not what we think of as being extreme trauma. In our body, it's still a traumatic response. Our body is still having a trauma response to it. And that's the same as if you overindulge. You don't know when to stop. You can't say no to food. For example, I teach my kids, I get them a tub of like this vegan ice cream, which I'm sure many people know, the Penna brand, which is so good. And if you don't know, go try it. But I will give them a tub of ice cream and a spoon. And I'll say, just have a little bit until your body's had enough. And remember that you also need some for tomorrow or the next day, and you put it in the freezer. And now at 5 and 7, they have once eaten a whole tub, but then they didn't have any later. And I said, well, what did you learn from this? And they go, well, we just want to have a little bit and put it back in the freezer. And I'm like, that's a great idea. So then again, ending that cycle of either scarcity, like you don't have enough food, so while I've got it, I need to eat it. Or is obviously, having self-control. Like I have a little bit and I can put it away and I don't have to finish it. Or it's okay to say no or to stop or listen to my body. My body's full, so don't keep eating beyond that point.
Yeah. Back in our generation, like it wasn't something that we learned as kids. So, you know, these days, I think that's really important for our kids to do better than we did. And have, better lessons, better experiences, and just gaining that self-control. So in saying that, why is the concept of spiritual and mindful parenting so important in this generation?
Because it's teaching you how to connect to yourself. So even the simple thing of food, if you don't know when your body is full, that's going to have detrimental effects on your well-being, how you feel about your body, how you feel inside of your body. So being able to parent in a way that teaches children how to connect to themselves. They don't put themselves into situations and environments where people take advantage of them, where people get abused because they're not listening to their intuition. They're not learning how to speak up for themselves. So even like for my children, I'm like, even if you're scared or you don't want to upset me, or you don't want me to get angry, or you think you're gonna get in trouble, or whatever it is, you have to say no to me, or you have to say how you're feeling. Even if I'm like, whatever I'm doing, because obviously we're still learning. I'm still healing from my childhood. Not that it was abusive, but there was, traumatic experiences that I need to unlearn and change how I respond to my children. But I try to instill in them as much as possible that you speak up for yourself, that you express like, I don't want to do this. I'm uncomfortable. I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel heard. And so when you're able to teach and empower your children to be connected to their voice, connected to their intuition, how they feel, their emotions, that holistic kind of parenting style, you're teaching them how to listen to themselves, which is so important, and how to emotionally regulate. So instead of responding in a traumatic way, and that could be like your partner does something and you yell at them immediately. You don't know why you're yelling. You don't understand where the emotion's coming from. You don't understand what's actually happening if you really stopped and had a look at it. Your body just immediately goes into a heightened emotional response and you verbal vomit. And then you take a moment and you look back and you go, wow, I really overreacted there. Like, I didn't need to say that, or that actually wasn't the issue that I was having an issue with. I'm actually really upset that this morning he didn't do the dishes. And so now when he walks in the door and he's late, I'm yelling at him for being late and not supporting me and not helping me. And so because we as adults haven't been connected to our intuition, we haven't been connected to our emotions, we haven't been connected to our needs, we haven't been connected to our boundaries, we don't know how to do that. But we can teach ourselves and we can empower our children to learn how to do that by teaching and learning how to parent them holistically. And the spiritual aspect is, again, them listening to their intuition, listening to the little messages of the universe that we get, and be open to it. Because the other thing that I feel is really important is when we want to manifest something, or we want to change our lives and live a certain way, but we've never experienced it before. So then it's hard to picture it in our lives because we can't see it. We want it, but it's never happened for us. So how could it really happen? But spiritual and being open to the universe and open to things is one, because you've never experienced it doesn't mean that it can never happen for you. And children already naturally have that ability. But what happens over time, we lose it because of our environment and how people talk to us. So they're already naturally in tune to the possibility of what if. And then we, our adults, as we get older and through our upbringing, go, well, yeah, what if, but it's not going to happen. Like, I'd love to do this, but it's not going to happen. But that's the beauty of life, is like you can't see everything. So when you can parent your children to just naturally be who they are, like, we're going to change and make a big shift in the environment of what these new generation of children are going to come through, and heal a lot of stuff that's been happening in relationships, family, in life, in business, in what the environment and what the society looks like, just because we change how we parent our children. Well, that's the belief that I have. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just being aware of those things as a parent and healing yourself, your children are going to follow suit. And if you're a little bit more gentle with yourself, you're going to be more gentle with them. Like, it's the domino effect. And in turn, your partner, or your co-workers, or whoever the people are around you, we have the ability to influence everyone around us just by looking at ourselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, trauma is a strong word, but everybody has some sort of childhood trauma, no matter how wonderful your parents were.
Yeah.
There's some sort of conditioning, there's some sort of trigger that you have there, whether it's, money or food or relationships. It's definitely there. There's something that you need to heal from. There's something that you need to grow from.
Yeah.
And having kids feel like their voices are heard and their voices are valued, and their opinions and their feelings are valued,
and they're being seen,
is going to be exactly. Imagine how different we would have grown up if we had that same experience.
Yeah.
If we can stop our children having to heal this later on, why not?
Well, the thing that how I shifted it was years ago. My son's 7 or heading towards 8. Was I wanted him to grow up to be confident, emotionally stable, especially as him to be a man or a male, and to be able to connect to his emotions, express himself, communicate. So for him to be that way, I had to then backtrack of being like, okay, well, what do I need to instill in him now as a baby, as a toddler, as a child, as a young boy? And then through that process, I was like, well, there's no point me doing any of that if I'm not showing him. I can't say to you, be confident, go after what you want, go express your needs, express how you're feeling, tell me what's going on for you. And then I'm completely blocked off and shut down. And I'm not confident. Yeah. I'm not going for what I want. I'm not expressing my boundaries. I'm not saying no to people. I'm doing things that make me uncomfortable and feel unsafe. Because he's not going to do what I say to do. He's going to do what he sees me do. And exactly. So for me to give him the best start that I possibly could in his life, and then obviously when my daughter came through, it shifted massively again, because I had a daughter who was obviously going to be walking in my footsteps and the footsteps that I walked from my mother and my grandparents and all the way up, that I had to embody exactly what I wanted for them. And then completely let go and trust that however they're going to be in their life is how they're going to be in their life, because I really have no choice in what happens. So then you can have what you want, have the plan, have the vision, do everything that you can, and then you just have to completely let it go and trust that whatever's going to happen is going to happen, because they're going to be their own person, walking their own path, having their own experiences, having their own journey, doing whatever they feel that they need to, and you don't really get a say in that. So you can do and give them the best foundations that you possibly can, and then you just got to let them do their own thing after that and be there to support them.
Yeah. See how they continue that program on without you. It's great. Like here are the resources. Here's the foundation. You know, this is how you build a house.
Yeah.
Okay. But how you decide to build your house when you leave, that's up to you. Like, you're your own architect.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good. I'm going to use that. I'm taking it.
You're welcome to it.
It's so true. And like that's why I in how I teach with my clients is the 6 core foundations, because you can get the foundations, but what you do with that is entirely up to you, and what your house looks like, where you build your house, the colors you use, the levels that you have, how many bedrooms, everything is going to be entirely up to you. But here's the foundations. And yeah, I love that. That's so good.
I guess too, like from you coming from a background of being a school teacher as well as a therapist and a mum and everything involved, you'd have a lot of experience, not just from your own experience as a parent, but also witnessing other parents and other children come through your door, come through your class, come through your services as well. What are some of the challenges that parents and children are really facing with today's society?
I feel like firstly, it's really important to see your child as a child, because I see, and I've noticed, like I've been working with, besides obviously being like looking after cousins and stuff, I've been working with children since I was 17 and I'm 32 now. And from working with and teaching with like kids, I then had a baby, and then I've been obviously a mother since I stopped. So obviously, 8 years ago, roughly 8.5 years, something like that. So what I see is the very most common, and sometimes I feel guilty with this, especially because my daughter is so consciously aware and so confident. From 2 years old, she changed her name. So like, and was able to express like, no, her name's actually Nalani, but from 2, and we called her Lani for short for people that couldn't pronounce Nalani. And from 2, she's like, no, my name is Nala. Like 2 years old. So she's a very confident kid. So I have to remind myself that she's 5 now, but I have to be like, she's 5. She's been on this earth for 5 years. She's a 5-year-old child. She's not 32. I've been alive for 32 years and I'm still learning. So then I find it's really common that parents put this expectation on their kids that they're an adult, or they have this expectation of, you know better. No, they don't know better. They're 3 or they're 4. Or they're trying to do it to piss me off. No, can I say piss off? Can I say that?
Yeah.
You know, or they're doing, like they do. Okay, don't get me wrong. Kids are very, very smart. They're very aware. They can play on your nerves, because they're learning what their environment is. What happens if I do this? What happens if I do this? Oh, mum yelled at me. That's a new emotion that I'm feeling. I want to do that again so I can understand it, because they're still learning. So they're very smart. They're still learning. They will push your buttons. They will put you against the other parent. Many times I've seen them actually do that, and I'm like, hey, no, like that's not what I said, or, you know, whatever it is. But at the same time, they're still a child. So putting expectations on a child to act a certain way because we're viewing them in the adult mind is so unfair, and that is going to create more trauma. And again, like I do, like my daughter can make herself food, same thing as my son. They can make themselves a sandwich or make themselves lunch. So like you can put the expectation of them for them to learn how to look after themselves, how to meet their needs, how to be responsible for their actions, how to be responsible for their emotions at age-appropriate development stages, and also individual children. Like my daughter in ways is a lot more advanced than my son, but then my son is more advanced in certain ways than my daughter. So it's, then they have different levels of what I can put on them. And that's for you to decide as a parent, where is your child emotionally at, mentally at, physically at, and then allow them to be that way without you then putting on a mindset that, well, they should know better. Well, sometimes, yeah, they should know better, but they're also a child pushing buttons, trying to figure out their world. And then with like generational trauma is you looking at yourself, you going back to your childhood. How did my parents speak to me? How did they support my emotions? How did they talk to each other? How were they intimate with each other? Did they show affection? Like people get all weird when I ask them that question, like, are your parents still like emotionally connected and intimate? And they're like, ooh, I don't want to think about that. And I'm like, well, you should be thinking about that. Because one, you exist because they had sex. Your children exist because you have sex. Everyone we know that has children is having sex. Like, you're an adult. Like, be aware of that. And the fact, but when you're looking at your parents and their intimacy, you're not so much walking in their path, but they're the ones that have educated you on what intimacy is, what connection is, what communication is. So if you can't look at them and you're uncomfortable to look at them and be like, wow, my parents are so in love. Like, how beautiful is that? How beautiful is it that they're still intimate with each other? How beautiful is it that they're still kissing each other? Or if you're looking at it going, wow, my dad never gives my mum any affection, maybe I need to analyze myself and see if that's played a role in how I am in my relationships. And is this something that I agree with? Or is this something, I just got shivers. I just got like full on tingles. Or so there, I feel like that's a little, I don't know, gold nugget for people. Like, because it's true, like for you to change your life for where you're unhappy, you have to go backwards and work out what has contributed to this. Where have I learned that this is what life looks like? Where have I got these beliefs from? And the biggest things that I'm passionate about is sexual intimacy, relationships, and parenting, because they are three things that no one educates themselves on. And those three things are the most, I got tingles again, the most important key things for people in their relationships. Because if you don't have sexual intimacy, you, one, probably aren't as happy and healthy as you probably need to be. And it's a basic need. We need connection. And I don't mean like penetration. I mean like kissing, cuddling, skin to skin, holding each other. We can heal through sexual intimacy and connection. We can heal through how our partner is able to support us. And the same thing with parenting and relationships. That's relationships with your family. That's relationships with your friendships, relationships with your colleagues, the people around you, and parenting, because you're raising the next generation of adults. So if you're looking at your partner going, far out, he shits me to death because he doesn't communicate, he doesn't hug me, he doesn't kiss me, then your children are witnessing that and how you communicate with your partner or the people around you, and they're seeing that and they're going to follow that.
Yeah.
So did that answer your question? I mean, like...
Yeah. I mean, powerful. I love the fact that we are, I guess, as a society, getting a little bit more open to the subjects of intimacy and parenting and relationships, because so many people, even just being in the spiritual industry, you meet so many people that are going through like spiritual awakenings and, you know, their partners are not supportive, or like their friends think they're just losing their shit.
Yeah.
Like, and they're just like, no, I really want to heal my stuff. You know, I really need to process this. I really need to look at this. I need to go back. I need to deal with this. We are getting more open to this. We are more accepting. We are more, okay, like what's happening? What's going on for you?
The safety is another one. And again, listening to their body. Then when, especially for females, because males can experience it too. So I'm not taking that away from them, but obviously I'm a female and I speak to a lot of females. Females many times are in situations and environments where they don't feel safe with another person, but they don't say anything or do anything. And where did we learn to
Yes.
do that? In childhood, when we're ignored to listen to our intuitions. No, go kiss grandpa. Like, here's your granddad. Go give him a kiss. I don't want to, mum. No, go do it. I told you need to go kiss him. So you're not teaching them to listen to what their body is telling them. If you don't, or you don't want to give mum a kiss goodnight, that's okay. That's all right. When you're ready, like, you can, or we can have a cuddle and a kiss tomorrow if you want to. Like, it's even with us, we're never forcing them to do something that their body is not wanting to do in that moment. And I feel like, again, that's going to start to change that generational trauma where women or men or whoever you, like, whatever you identify as, doesn't listen to your body. And I feel like, again, where they feel safe and where they feel connected. And yeah, I feel like that's a powerful thing for children to have, because then they're adults that do that and they don't go against what their body's telling them to do.
Exactly. And it's also opening up that line of conversation.
Yeah.
Because, you know, my eldest son, he's in high school. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he's hitting puberty and things are happening,
Yeah.
right? And, like, we are very open with him and we explain to him, this is what this is what this means, this is, you know, and it's so that he is aware and he has that knowledge and he's not stumbling through just, like, unaware of what is going on with his body, what he's feeling, like, etc. Because, I mean, this was another thing that was not given to our generation.
Yeah.
You know, it was, if we don't talk about sex, they won't have it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and we all know
that's
that did not
definitely
happen.
Right. I was like, guys, you were way off.
Yeah.
Way off.
I feel the more you talk about it in a safe and age appropriate things. Like, for my kids, they don't know about sex, but they know that mummy has an egg and daddy has a seed. But they also know that there's many different ways to have a family, because my ex-husband is adopted. So we've talked about that as well. But I feel like the more we talk about it, the more we support our children through their natural curiosity and connection and understanding their emotions of what their body is feeling, the more they're more, especially like when you think about like your sexual history, how many times were you intimate with someone or you did something against what your body was telling you? Yeah. And then later on you were like, I wish I didn't do that. Or then you're dealing with the repercussions of, again, you not listening to your body. Whereas if you empower your children to be connected to their needs, they're going to say no to people that are going to disrespect them, that aren't connected to them, because especially when, and again, I'm speaking this from a female's perspective because I am a woman, is if my daughter knows how to pleasure herself and she knows how good that feels for herself, do you think, or if this is your daughter or your son, do you think they're going to go to someone else who doesn't make them feel good? They're not.
Exactly.
Because they have a standard of, I know what feels good, I know what I deserve, I know what I'm worthy of, and you are not that. So no, thank you.
Yeah.
So, but that's coming from them feeling safe and connected and confident in themselves, because you've talked about it in a safe environment where they feel safe to express themselves to someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
I'm
so important.
very passionate about that. I can talk about that forever.
It's something that I think is important to talk about. It is so important. And being in a safe place to explore your curiosity. I mean, that is what we are here. This is what this podcast is for, guys. Yeah. Like, we are here to talk about our curiosities and like lean into it and learn more and find out what it is that we're dealing with. So I think that's super important, especially for children. Like, you know, being encouraged to explore these things, find their curiosities, nurture their curiosities, and be there to support them through it without judgment, without fear, without adding all these extra little layers of conditioning that we've experienced onto them. I'd love to know, how has your journey kind of shaped the way that you parent your children? Like, how did you find yourself here? How did you find yourself on this path, integrating more of a holistic parental approach?
It's been interesting because it's changed a few times, obviously, as I've changed as a person. But where it first began was with my son. And I think he must have been about like 10 or 11 months, and I smacked him. And I was always like, I grew up with my dad being like, he used a belt or a stick if we were in trouble. My mum never really did it. It was always like, well, when your dad gets home, like, because obviously that was kind of like the mentality of parenting a bit. Is like, you know, the dad does the punishment and stuff like that. And even though like my dad had great qualities, he also had a lot of trauma in his life, and that obviously gets passed down through generational trauma. So yeah, my son was about 10 or 11 months and something happened. I don't even remember, but I remember this moment, and I smacked him. And I heard, as I spoke to him, I heard my dad's voice, and I was just like, WTF. And I was like, that's like, I know better. Like, I know that this is not how you parent. I know that smacking isn't going to help my child to grow into an emotionally stable, confident, like clear communication adult. Like, I know this through development. I know this through my history of education and what children's like basic needs are and what they need to grow and feel safe. Because when you use physical punishment, which is smacking and things like that, or isolation, sending your child to a bedroom, you're teaching them that, one, they have to be by themselves when they've got big emotions, or to isolate themselves if they say something wrong or do something wrong, or they get angry, or, you know, anything like that. They don't have support. They don't have someone to talk to, which is detrimental to mental well-being of adults. And obviously for children, but obviously we have adults that don't go and talk to people and don't express themselves and don't know how to communicate. But then physical punishment, you're teaching that child that even though I hit you, I smacked you, I still love you and you can still come to me and talk to me. And that's teaching that, like, physical, it's in a way it is abuse, even though we don't mean it. But you think about, if that was a grown man smacking a woman, that's abuse. But then an adult can do it to a child, and that's just good punishment or good parenting. And so anyway, for me, I was like, this isn't how I want to parent. And I have smacked him many times over, like, not for, obviously for a long, long time now, but as he was growing up, because I literally would channel my dad. And I had to go back and be like, how can I heal myself? Because this isn't, like, I remember being so scared of my dad and hearing his voice and hearing his temper. And I didn't want to be that way. So then I realized I had to heal myself and be able to, and work out, what kind of parent do I want to be? Do I want to be a parent that my kids are scared of, that don't know how to talk to them, or them don't feel safe to come to me? And so I started, like, going down my journey of, like, reading. I've read a lot, I still do, talking to other people, learning about, like, toxic childhood trauma. There's a book, I can't remember what it's called, but I can message it to you and then you can share it if you want to, which is really, it talks about toxic childhood trauma and how childhood traumas can create, obviously, health ailments in the body, and it's really, really well written. So that also helped me in my journey of, like, again, figuring out what kind of parent do I want to be, what kind of parent do I feel I am now, and where do I need to heal and change this. And the biggest thing that clicked for me probably about 4 years ago or 3 years ago was emotional regulation. And that, I feel like, when you can work out how to emotionally regulate your body, then you will change, obviously, how your experiences are. So with me, with parenting, when I feel my body starting to react in an emotional way, I have, like, a process of what I know I need to do. I need to either walk away. I need to express to the kids, like, I need you to listen right now. My body's starting to feel angry. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to yell. I need you to listen right now. Like, and, you know, whatever I need to do, I'll walk out. Sometimes I'll just leave. I'll just walk out because I'm like, me yelling right now and getting to a place of where I don't want to be isn't going to be productive. But that's like years of work. Like, that is me. Like I said, my son is nearly 8 and I'm still learning. I'm still learning how to self-regulate. I still yell sometimes and then I have to backtrack. I'm very grateful that I don't no longer feel the urge to smack them, because it's not even an urge. It's like your body just gets so emotionally overwhelmed because, like, you're needing something and it's not being done. So how can I control this situation? So I need to physically control it. This is all unconsciously what our bodies do. And then you think about, like, men that punch when they're drunk and stuff. They've got anger in their body and then boom, they punch and they're not even thinking about it. That happens in our bodies too. And especially when it's taught behavior. So
it's, I guess, you know, your body's reacting rather than responding.
Yeah, it is. And that's where, if you learn how to emotionally regulate, it will change pretty much every area of your life, because you can focus on calming yourself first, to then react and respond in a way that feels much more aligned to you. And for me, yelling and getting angry does not align with me. That's not the person that I want to be. So, you know, and especially when parents, we can, again, we're looking through our perspective, through our vision on it, but children's minds are everyone's minds are very different. So if you see something, perceive it, and you go, oh, you've just made a big mess. Like, what are you doing? Go to your room, boom, smack, leave. Whereas if you just go, whoa, what are you doing? Why have you done this? And they go, well, I wanted to cut you up a card, but I didn't know how to do it. So then there's paper everywhere, there's glue everywhere, there's glitter everywhere. But in their mind is, I want to make mummy a beautiful card. And all we see is, holy dooly, you've made a massive mess that I have to now clean up. So you've got, you know, and then you've just done something to that child where they're like, well, I ain't making anything nice for mum now. She smacked and hit me. And all I was trying to do is show her how much I love her. And now I've got a smack on my bum. I'm hurt. I'm sent to my room. I don't want to do that again. And then they're 20 and you're however old and you go, my daughter never gets me a Christmas present or a birthday present. I wonder why. Like, you know, like these little things impact and make, if you can connect the dots, you'll be able to change perspective. So that's, again, it's not easy. Like it's a very hard process. The amount of times I have cried over it, the amount of times I've cried with my son saying, I'm so sorry that I reacted that way. You do not deserve it. And not making an excuse, but I have shared like little parts of my childhood with them so they have the awareness of like why I do the same way, like what I do or what I've done, I'm sorry. So that they have an understanding of it, but it's not an excuse. That's not okay. It's still not okay. It's still not, like, I still explain that to them. And I do with my son, I still to this day have a lot of guilt with how I parented him. But I do feel like he came through to teach me those lessons. And unfortunately, that's just I wouldn't have learnt them without him. And I feel like now I have the things in place that when he's older, that he wants to heal or he wants to communicate with me of what he experiences in his childhood, I can hold that space for him and apologize a million times again. So I kind of, with the guilt, I kind of just release the fact that like, I can't really undo that, but I can only change from this point of view. And I feel like that helps with then how I parent him now, of like reaffirming again how I want to be there for them and how I want to parent.
I feel like you're not the same person you were before those lessons.
Yeah.
And so for you to become the person you currently are, you had to go through that. Like, I feel like some things are, unfortunately, just like a karmic issue. Yeah. It's something that you needed to learn. It's something that someone was sent to teach you.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest part of that as well is like, there's no instruction book with this. You know, no one tells you how to parent. No one tells you how to deal with your child specifically and your upbringing specifically, and how to find a healthy blend of the two.
Yeah.
So it's really like parenting is trial and error over and over and over again.
Yeah.
As much as we grow and as much as we change through this experience and this process, we're constantly evolving as our children are evolving. And I think being able to get to a point where, you know what, I have made mistakes, you know, I've not handled this in the best way, and I can hold that space for you when you need to heal from this, and it's fine. Like, we'll go through this together. So I feel like that in itself is just such an important thing and so powerful to even just share. So thank you.
That's okay. And I feel like people think that you just got to get to 18. Like, once your child is 18, you don't have to parent anymore. I'm 32 and my mum is still parenting me. Like, we're still learning things together and expressing ourselves and holding that space and saying, hey, I didn't like when you did this. We need to talk about it, you know, whatever it is. So I feel like that saying of you just got to get like the first 18 years. No, you're a parent for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And you're still learning and navigating, because we're constantly changing.
Yeah.
And I feel like the other important thing is action. Like, if you're not happy in the way that you parent, you don't feel like you're a good parent, like just because of how you feel in your body and how you are navigating that journey, then put things into action. Work out, what do you need to do to support yourself? What do you need to do to heal from your childhood? What do you need to do to stop reacting in a way that doesn't align with you, that you don't want to react to your children? what can you put in action to stop speaking the way that you do to your children? Like, what are the actions, the actual physical steps that you need to take in order to change that? Because if you're constantly putting yourself down or attacking yourself or telling yourself how bad of a parent you are, one, you're not. Like, no one really is, I don't feel. We just have a lot different scales of trauma and also what parenting looks like. So if you were taught how to parent from someone who you perceive was abusive, neglectful, should never have had kids, then you have that as a basis that now you can learn from what not to do. And now you get to create how you want to parent your children. It's like that saying, or like there's a story or saying or metaphor of like the dad was an alcoholic. And so he had two sons. One of them never drunk alcohol ever in his life and became very successful. The other one was an alcoholic. And you ask them, why did you turn out the way you did? Well, my dad was an alcoholic. I never wanted to be like that. And the other one who was an alcoholic said, why did you turn out the way you did? And he goes, my dad was an alcoholic. I didn't know I had a choice. So same childhood, very two different people, the same excuse. My dad was an alcoholic for why they were successful and didn't pick up alcohol. And my dad was an alcoholic for why I'm an alcoholic. So you have choices if you either follow the steps of your parents or you put in a plan and action to support yourself to change how you parent and the style that you do and be the support that you needed as a child to how to support your children in a way that supports them, not how you think they need to be supported, but actually how they need to be supported. And I feel like that is really important as a parent to listen, like actually listen to your children, listen to what they say, listen to how they feel, like watch them and observe them of who are they, not who we think that they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that even comes through as not just with children, but even with like adult children.
Yeah.
Parents listening to their children, whether they're 2 years old, whether they're 20 years old.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just listening to those feelings because, like you said, parenting does not stop when you turn 18.
No.
It's just your
dynamic changes.
Your connection, your dynamic and your connection changes. But you still have to continue that communication process, continue that growth, continue that support.
Yeah. And I think even like you bring up an interesting point about the adult parenting dynamic, because sometimes when you're an adult, and I've been guilty of this with like aunts and uncles and like extended family, when you're an adult, you still respond in a way that you're a child. And they still do that to you in a way as well. And you are an adult. You're in charge of your own choices, your own life. And I feel like it's up to you to change that dynamic to be like, hey, I'm an adult. I'm not 7 anymore. If I want to do this with my life, then I'd really appreciate it if you could support me in that. Or if you're not able to, then please just don't have an input.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing as well is for the adult in that dynamic of the parenting, or even if you're not a parent, you were raised by your grandparents or adopted families, or whatever the family dynamic is, whoever that main caregiver was for you. Or if you're listening and you are that older person who cared for a child, or you are the parent, sometimes you have to take ownership for stuff that even though you don't feel like you did, how the child perceived it needs to be acknowledged. And that's something that I read a book that I highly recommend this book. I wrote a note down to make sure I recommended this book called Deeper Dating by Ken Page. Now, don't let the name deter you from reading it. It is a great relationship book. It helped me heal a lot with my children. And I know it's called Deeper Dating, but I recommend this to everyone. Everyone should read this book. It should be called Deeper Relationships, seriously. But it helped me also heal the relationship with my mum. And I took 3 to 4 months space from her where we didn't speak. My mum is typical mum, you go to her house and she's a mum to everyone. She's a very loving, caring person. But the way that I needed to be parented, she wasn't able to do that because I wasn't able to express it. It was a different generation when we were growing up. So I took space from her so I could heal myself, get to a place where I could have a conversation with her, but actually know what I needed to express to her. So if this is the same thing, if you're experiencing this with your parents, then read this book and connect to how you want to express yourself. Get yourself into a good place where regardless of what they say or do, you still feel good and you can heal what you need to. But it's about both people taking ownership. Me as a parent, me as the child when I was younger, I needed more cuddles. I needed more connection. And that's real. I've really suffered that in my adult life of like, I need that. I need that physical touch. I need to be cuddled. I need to be told like, you're proud of me or you love me. Like these simple things, like I know you do, but I need to hear it. And then the parent or the caregiver or whoever that role is being like, yeah, I didn't know how to. I never received it. I didn't know that was important. So it's like both people need to take ownership. And even if you're an adult, you can still heal that relationship with your parent. And if you're the parent or the caregiver, then it's important for you to also hear what they say and acknowledge that, because you can't choose how they feel or how they grew up, but you can accept it and help that relationship to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the thing too. You bring up relationships. Parents and couples who maybe have separated and there's not the best relationship there, or they're still trying to co-parent. There's challenges with that. I mean, I have been married twice, and my children's dad is not my current husband. It's actually my ex, but we still have a beautiful relationship. My ex-partner was in the bridal party for the wedding to my current husband. That's how close that we all are.
That's so beautiful.
And we have a very big support network between us. But that's not always the case. And unfortunately, I know that there are some complications that do go into that with safety and things like that. So I'm not putting anything onto those situations. But with parents and couples who are, I guess, going through this change in dynamic and change in, I guess, their parenting styles and navigating different conditioning and different upbringings into their own children, how can they best support each other? What's your advice?
I think the most important thing is acceptance. Sometimes just accepting like things are the way they are and you don't have any control in that. Because especially when it's another person, like you can't control how the other person is. And clearly if there's a breakdown in the relationship, there were needs not being met. But accepting that person is the way that they are, and that's it. Like, you know, and then healing yourself, learning again, emotional regulation, healing the parts of you, gaining the awareness of what in you attracted that dynamic in that partner for them to be the way that they were, to then obviously make it that you are now separate. Because, and again, going back to your childhood, how were your parents? How did they talk to each other? How did they connect to each other? How did they meet your needs? How did they speak to you? That's all going to come into it. And then through that process, then you can see the person for who they are and accept them for who they are, and that they aren't that person for you. Losing the expectation of how it should be, how that person should be behaving, how that person should be showing up for you. And in the way of like spiritual, because I'm noticing this a lot lately, is like women are advancing, and I don't mean like one's number one and one is lesser, but we're advancing in the way of healing our wounds, expressing ourselves, communication, boundaries, worthiness, going after things that we want. And men aren't quite there. They're kind of just starting to get that awareness and starting to realize that they can heal their trauma. They can express themselves now. They don't have to bottle everything in. And I feel like how you can support people in that dynamic is maybe the person that you want to support you. So whether that is your partner or if you've separated because of it, maybe they're just not that person to support you in that journey. Like they're not the person to speak to about what you're going through. And maybe that's temporary, maybe that's forever. That's obviously up to you to figure out. But you have other people to support you and you can turn to them. And the other really, really key thing is understanding our biological norm. There's a lot, I don't know if this is going to annoy anyone that listens to you, but I feel like the wave of like the feminist movement of like women can do it all, we don't need no man, all of that is actually really harming and detrimental because we are not built to do it all. We are not built, and we emotionally and physically, mentally, spiritually, women are not biologically being created to do everything. And we are more erratic, we are more emotional, and it's the men or the masculine dynamic of the partnership to hold that space and be grounded in who they are. So I feel it's really, really important to understand the biological like the biological feminine and the masculine energy, regardless of what you identify as, we have those qualities inside of us. And we even individually have both of those qualities inside of us. But biologically, we function better being mostly in one of them. And a lot of, like, I don't know if this is going to go too deep or too off topic, but if you look through the history of our relationship dynamics and you go back to the time of like wartime, women had to step up because men went away to war. So then women were looking after the household, doing the children, the parenting, and working. And then that's also like when schools came about, schooling system to send your kids to a school or a daycare was because women needed to go and earn an income because men were going to war. And then when men came back, they were wounded, they were traumatized, they were disabled. So then that dynamic and polarity changed because women then were still dealing with a man who was now wounded and traumatized and disabled or whatever, or they didn't come back because they had died. So then women then became into that masculine role. They became the role of the protector, the provider, the nurturer, the home body. And that hasn't changed. And then because of that dynamic, women are still, have this belief like men are crap. They don't know how to support us. They're all the same. They're all toxic. They're all that. No. The polarity has changed and that dynamic hasn't changed back, and that's on both of us. Because if you are as a woman not allowing your man, and again, I'm using male and female, but it doesn't matter what you identify as because that energy is still in the same-sex relationships or polyamorous relationships. I'm just using masculine and feminine because like it's easier for me to explain it that way. Yeah. But the masculine and the feminine, because the feminine needs flow. We need freedom. We need to like just go with whatever we need to do. And women and mothers especially are in the role of a masculine role because we're doing everything. And that's why we are so sick. Like I have dealt with chronic adrenal fatigue, thyroid issues for years that I'm still healing. My nervous system is much better now, but it's because I've been functioning in a role that is not healthy for my body. And what we do when we're in that way is because then the masculine doesn't know how to be then. Because they're like, well, I can't provide for you because you want to do it yourself. I can't, even like the simplest things of opening a jar, building something. Men need to be needed. They need to be needed. They need to be the provider. And this, like, there's a lady called Monica Yates, and she talks about this a lot, of you can be more financially, like, be the breadwinner for the family, but you can still allow your man to lead. You can still allow your man to be in his masculine energy or whoever the other partner is in the dynamic that you have. If you're in a same-sex relationship or polyamorous relationship, there's still that dynamic. And I feel like that is going to make a big shift, even if you're separated. Like I have my issues with my ex and we've known each other since we were teenagers, but I try as much as I can, and it's hard sometimes because of what our dynamic has been. And our dynamic is I constantly feel like I'm trying to shift and change and grow and evolve and heal. And I feel like he doesn't as much as me. That's just how it feels on my end. So it is hard. But when I can, I try and make sure that I'm like, hey, I need you to do this. I really need your support. I really need this, like whatever it is, because he's also going to model our children what it looks like. And again, the other thing is do it with your children. So with my son, I'm like, hey, I really need your help to open this jar. Even if I've like just unloosened it just a little bit, he still gets to, because again, it's me in trying to be that role model for him of what that dynamic looks like between a male and a masculine and a feminine energy. And he can embody those qualities in himself, and he knows how to attract a person or a partnership that's going to honor those qualities in him, and him to grow up knowing what that means, and my daughter to know what it means for her. And I feel like that will start to make shifts in relationships, whether you're separated, maybe reduce the separation dynamics, because we're attracting partners that actually match us, what's the word that I always use? Complementing relationship, because that is going to help. Like, and I just want to mention, because this is something I've just realized, I'm a very strong, confident, not all the time, but like I can be a very strong presence. So I was thinking in my mind, oh, well, I need to lessen that so that I can attract a masculine partner. And what I've realized, no, what I need to do is find a masculine partner that complements who I naturally am. I am naturally an organizer. I am naturally a planner. It feels good. I enjoy that. But I can attract a partner that then the stuff that I don't enjoy, I can hand to him, and he can be the provider, the organizer, the planner. Because naturally, as a feminine and a feminine energy, we don't always function well with that. We need flow. But sometimes we do need structure in that. So we embody that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's finding that partner and that you complement each other and finding a way to accept people for who they are, and then knowing that maybe that person just isn't for you, and find someone else that can fill the needs and the voids that you need to do.
Yeah. Still having that mutual respect.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay, yes, like for example, on your end, you're feeling that you have grown a lot quicker than your ex-partner, but you still respect where he's at.
Yeah.
You still have that respect, like, okay, some of us move a little quicker, some of us move a little slower. Like, that just depends on his blueprint and how he works and how he operates.
And what his journey is. Like, because everyone's on a different path. And to be aware of that is important, and accept that everyone's walking their own experience. And there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to focus on yourself and surrender to whatever it looks like in the external of what your world is.
Yeah, exactly. And just, I guess, supporting them in that. Because when you are separated, things can get tense. Because you do feel like, well, I'm healing more, or I'm healing quicker, or I'm putting the work in. Like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah. I've had those moments many times.
And, and I'm sure it's both ways. Like, it's, I'm sure I have seemed that way to my ex-partner. I'm sure they have seemed that way to me. Like, it's just accepting it and being supportive and not being bitter about it.
Yeah.
When they do ask for help or they can't offer you that support at that time.
Yeah.
Not being bitter about it. Being like, okay, you can't help me with this at this time. You're not the person I need to turn to. I'll turn to a friend. I'll turn to a sibling. I'll turn to my parents. Like, I'll turn to somebody else that can help me navigate my way through this water that you're not available to do right now. You can't expect, this is the process or the concept as well of just, you can't fill from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Like, if someone is dealing with their own drama, their own bullshit, and they don't have the mental capacity to take on yours as well, and they've communicated that with you, respect it. Like, we're human. We have limitations. There's only so much that we can handle at a time. That's just the way it is. But in regards to parents, whether you absolutely despise each other on a passionate level, or whether, it's just an unfortunate circumstance. In my circumstances, my ex-partner and I, we were really young when we got together, and we had such a connection, such a friendship, that it was kind of like, oh, well, we're meant to be together because we get along so well, and this is how we connect. And it was just turning a relationship that should have been platonic into a romantic one that just was not romantic. And further down the track, we realized this and went, okay, this is not how we operate. We operate much better in this sort of dynamic rather than this sort of dynamic. So coming to that conclusion of, okay, we're not what each other needs in this dynamic. We need to stop, and we need to move along. But we still have that friendship dynamic. We still have that support. We still have that mutual parenting, that mutual respect. And our decisions are made together. And, we do hear each other out, and we do process our problems and our issues with our children together. It's having that respect for where they're at in their journey.
And I just wanted to add also, it's the kids. Like,
Yeah.
you chose, even if you didn't, like my children came through, they were not planned. Both of them were not planned. And at both times where I was fully not ready, even though I always wanted to have children, I was not ready because we were having issues in the relationship and fighting a lot and things like that. And I could have terminated. I could have left and go, it's not the right time. But I chose to have them. I chose to bring them into this world. And it's not their fault that their dad and I didn't work out. And the same thing, we met each other when we were teenagers. And for him, like I mentioned earlier, like he was adopted. So he was adopted at 13 months from Brazil. So he has a lot of trauma in his background. And so we both were two traumatized people coming together, thinking, again, we had a great friendship. We got along really well on that like friendship level, which can go deeper, but it also can be very surface kind of level. And especially when you're 17, 18, it's not really that common to go deeper than that. It feels really passionate. It feels really exciting, like your world's going to end if they're not with you every minute of every day. But it's not. It sometimes can, like, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the times it's more surface kind of stuff.
Yes.
And it's not my children's responsibility or fault that he and I got together and had babies and got married and things like that. So we need to find a way, and we have had fights, we've had arguments. It's still like, I think even like a week ago we got into an argument, like, but again, we come back to what do the kids need? What's important for them? We're about to go to Sydney together for our first trip with the kids. My daughter hasn't been on a plane before and my son hasn't been on a plane since he was 1, and he wanted to come and experience that first experience with them. So we're all going together. We're staying in a hotel together. Like, and the other thing I just want to say, just because you get along well doesn't mean there's sexual intimacy. Because so many people say, oh, well, you get on so well, why don't you just be together? Like, what, he's a nice guy, you know, blah, blah. Or you guys are definitely still getting it on. No, we are not, because that connection has gone. But,
exactly.
But for the children's sake, of course we get along well. Like, we can, like, I'm staying at his house at the moment. And he, like, there's nothing there because that dynamic has ended. And it's also very confusing for kids to, you know, see their kids, like, parents are being affectionate, then they're not being affectionate, then they are, then they're not, then they're like, what is going on? And that's also teaching children what does a relationship look like. And for us, we wanted to teach them that even if relationships break down, you can still do it in a way that's respectful. If the relationship ends, you can still do it in a respectful way. Even if you're hurt, you can still do it in a respectful way. I'm not talking about if there's abuse. That's a very different topic and dynamic. But I'm just talking about when there's kids and when you're just separating, you can do it in a way that is still respectful to that person is the parent of your children. That person is still going to be in your life if they are. So, I just wanted to add, just because you get along well doesn't mean that you get along well in an intimate relationship. Or you're still being intimate with each other, because you're not. Or you might be, but I'm not. Or generally,
thank you for bringing that up. Like, so many people used to ask us, like, oh, is there like a bit of a throuple thing going on here? Because like my husband would just like come along to things with me and my ex, and it was just like, no, guys, like, there's a completely different dynamic here.
And that's the thing, it's for the kids. Like, I've even said to him, like, I want to be in a place where we can still do family holidays and things, but with you, if you have a partner, if I have a partner, because the thing is that we are a family regardless of him and I separating. And for the kids, we are a family. Like I say, like, I'm staying with family. I'm staying with my ex-husband, but he's still family. He's just now, instead of being in the intimate relationship of a family role, he's like, I know it sounds weird, but it's like like a brother kind of dynamic. Like, you know, like, so
yes.
Like, because our relationship broke down in an intimate marriage dynamic does not change the fact that he is still a father to my children, and they need to witness what that dynamic looks like, and that we can still be respectful, and we can go on family vacations together. Because the other thing is, if you are fighting in front of your children and they're seeing that, that's what they're witnessing of that's what a relationship looks like when it ends. But also then what that stress and strain that puts on your children, because they're like, well, who do I invite to my wedding? I make sure that mum sits on this side of the wedding, but make sure dad's way on the other side, because they can't be together, otherwise they'll fight, and make it about them, and it's my wedding.
Yeah.
No, it's about the children, always putting them first. Listening to your needs as well. Like there's times where I'm like, look, I can't speak to you right now because I'll rip your head off. So let's just keep it like neutral. You leave, give me my space. But then, you know, we can have those moments of like, I need space. I don't want to talk to you right now and I'm not going to fight with you. So just leave. Like,
yeah.
And then talk about it later, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, oh my God, it's so funny because my ex, a lot of our mutual friends, because we have mutual friends, like we grew up together basically, you know, and a lot of our mutual friends are like, oh, you guys have way more of a sibling relationship than, you know, like a couple. And they used to get so creeped out by it because they're like, well, don't say that, we have children together. And I'm like, but that's our dynamic though. Yeah. Like, and we definitely have that dynamic.
Like it's that deep friendship where it's just a friendship, fun, playful, you know, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's family, and just continuing having that respect and relationship for the kids. Like our kids cannot turn us against each other. Our kids cannot play things against us, and they know this because we talk every day.
Yeah. So
they can't say, oh, you know, Mum said this, you know, you have to do this. And it's like, well, I spoke to your mother this morning and she didn't say that, so.
I've had that. I've got those messages where they're like, Nala or Marcos is like, said that we could get these lollies. Are they pulling my chain or like what's going on? And I'll message you and be like, no, that's not what I said. Or yes, no, it's fine. They're being truthful. Like.
It's having that communication.
Yeah.
And I think that that's super important to have, especially when trying to co-parent. And you'd know this for sure. Like you grow up with different environments, different conditioning. And, you know, your idea of parenting and their idea of parenting may not mesh the way that you think it's going to. And they might have a completely different opinion on something. So just having that open line of communication to go, okay, this is where my viewpoint's coming from. Can you tell me yours? So that we can come to a mutual understanding and find a compromise or,
compromise.
You know, discuss what is going to be the best option here. Just having that is so much more beneficial for your kids than this constant fighting and arguing. Like, we've always had this rule that it was like, no matter what was happening with us, we would never talk badly about each other to our children.
Yeah.
Because that's our opinion. That opinion shouldn't be forced on them. You know, they have their own relationship. Their relationship with their other parent is going to be so much different to what your relationship is with that other parent. So your feelings about your relationship shouldn't impose their relationship.
And the same goes with in-laws. So my in-laws never liked me, really. Well, once they realised I was sticking around, which I've since realised through my own healing journey. Like, I'm so grateful for my ex-mother-in-law because she put me into this role. Like, she put me on this path because of how bad it was. But I will never speak badly about them in front of the kids ever. And I respect that they have a relationship with them. But I have made compromises of like, he needs to monitor if they ever speak badly about me. He needs to say something. And so like I respected that they were always going to be in the kids' lives. So I think that's really important, not to speak badly again about the partner or the ex-partner, but also the family. And then when they're the age where they can still make their own decisions and they are older and they ask you and you want to explain what actually happened, then tell them. Like, I will tell them what happened because they'll ask, why did Daddy and I separate? But just don't speak badly about anyone to the kids because they're not adults. They're not your friend. Please don't call your kids your best friends. They're not. And I mean that in a way of when they're a child, they're not your best friend. You are the parent. They are your child. When they're an adult, like my mum's my friend now, like because she's an adult, we can have adult conversations. But when they're 4 and 3 and 2 and 5 and 6 and 7, they're not in that role of what a friendship dynamic is. You are a parent. You are the one that has to say no to them, that has to sometimes go against what they're wanting or what they think they need because it's not right time or whatever it is. I feel like, it's important that be their friend when they're an adult. Don't be the friend when you're a parent because I feel like the lines can get blurred a little bit then.
Yeah, it's just having that explanation as well. Like, there's times that you do have to set boundaries and just explaining to them why this boundary, why this decision has been made so that they can you know, even if they don't fully understand at that point, it's like, okay, there is reason behind the madness. There is a reason this has happened. There's a reason we're saying this, or the reason we're doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I think that family and everything can be complicated. I mean, everybody's family is complicated. You know, we're always like, oh, you don't want to meet my family. It's like, well, everyone's family is just as fucked up.
Yeah. Like how interesting is this? So we separated and no one knew for over a year because we didn't tell anyone. And we lived in the same house. We slept in separate beds and we still did things to look like we were still together because I wasn't ready to tell everyone and deal with everyone like judging me and the things they would say, and they still did. I got told many times I was making the wrong choice, but yeah, for over a year. And then when I told everyone was shocked that they didn't know because we looked so happy. So
it was the same with us. Yeah,
it's not always the case. Everyone has their own stuff that they're dealing with. Everyone has their own things, their own issues. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Stay in your own lane and support and accept people for what they are.
Yeah. And I guess too, like for the mums or the dads that really don't have that other parent to lean on or to rely on or to help and support, just being open with the fact that, hey, I'm human. I have restrictions. I have limitations. I need a break. I need time where I can just sit and not have you scream in my ear for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Like, I will play with you after. Just knowing also that you don't have to fill both of those roles.
Yes, yeah. If you are a single parent and you don't, and the other partner isn't the children's lives, or if they are, but you don't feel like they're being a good role model in the way that they are, like women have community and it's a lot easier for women, I find, to find that dynamic. It can be challenging, but I feel like it's easier for women to communicate and express their needs. Men and boys need role models. They need people to look up to that are guiding them. So if you don't have a partner or you don't feel like your partner is giving them everything, you can go out and find a village and take them to places where you don't leave. I don't say, I'm not guiding anyone to leave the children with these people, but but they can be around. So even for me, I have a friend and her partner is, I let my son, we will go hang out and he'll do boy stuff with him so that he can have multiple men that give him multiple different things and show him different ways. This guy is very affectionate to my friend. He's very loving. He's nurturing. He is that masculine dynamic of doing the things around the house for her. She'll come home and he's been cleaning and taking the rubbish out. Like, they're my inspo for like a healthy relationship. So like, our children don't have to get it just from us. It's important that they see different dynamics and they can look at different dynamics, especially for children, male children or masculine children, or whoever it is that, or however you identify, that you have those role models in your life that they can look upon and see how they communicate, how they treat their partner, how they treat people, how they speak to people. So even if your partner isn't that person, you can find it somewhere else. You just have to look and communicate. I went to them and said, hey, I want Marcos to have some more males in his life. My one brother works a lot. My other brother's overseas. I don't have many males in my life. Can we hang out so Marcos can hang out with your partner and he can have that boys time, because I'm not good at it, because I'm not male. I'm not rough and boisterous. Yeah. So there's other avenues that you can take as well. And that's important to have for everyone as well. And having a support, having that village, having that community.
Yeah, it's literally that saying, like, it does take a village to raise a child. Like, it's leaning on those around you, not just your other parent, not just your partner. Like, it's leaning on the friends, the family, everyone else that's around you, the people that you trust. And if you don't have those people, they are out there. You just need to find them and connect with them. And that's kind of what we're here for, is like to help you with these resources, to help you with this journey.
Yeah.
So before we wrap things up, I'd really like to know, what has been your biggest lesson or takeaway from working with parents in holistic and spiritual therapies?
Oh, my biggest lesson is, I feel like, to accept people for who they are. We have such a big expectation on people of how they should be, how they should be showing up for you, how they should be speaking, how they should just know things, how, like, I feel like there's so many expectations that I feel like accepting even where you're at accepting like this is where I am right now, and I can do things to change it, but right now in this moment, this is where I am. So I feel like acceptance is probably the biggest lesson that I've learned. And support. It's really important for you to know how to support yourself. It's really important for you to know how to ask for support and know like what it is that you need support with, and for you to seek the people that are the people that can support you, because not everyone can and not everyone's able to. So you have to find the right people and the right connections that are able to support you in the way that is going to actually support you in an effective way. So yeah, there's many lessons, but I feel like those are the two biggest ones, is support and acceptance.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing all of your stories with us today, Miisha, and just sharing your knowledge, sharing your experiences. And I really appreciate it. You're such a lovely,
thank you,
lovely person, and such an inspiration, and a great mom.
Oh, thank
you.
I don't always feel it, but I appreciate hearing it. And thank you so much for having me. I feel like we went a lot longer than what was planned, but I feel like when you're talking about topics like this is why it's so important to be aware of how to educate yourself in this, because it's not a simple topic to talk about with parenting or relationships. And there's so many layers to it. So I'm so grateful for you have invited me and to talk about it, because it is clearly something I'm passionate about and can talk about it for a long time.
I'm just so thankful that we've had such a great guest to cover it.
You.
So if people are wanting to work with you, where can they find you?
So you can find me mainly on Instagram is where I'm most active, which is I'm Holistic Spiritual Therapies. So IES at the end, therapies. And if you want to sign up for my emails, I send weekly emails just giving like some guidance, some support, and I update like if I've got a YouTube video or if I've done a podcast on miishajade.com. They're pretty much the best places to find me.
Amazing. And a little birdie told me about a little book that was
Yes,
in
I
the
actually
works.
have it here. So this is the journal that I have that's available, and in around October, I will have a children's book coming out. So I'm just getting my illustrators doing all the illustrations right now. It's going to be a very beautiful, natural Australian animals in Australian bushlands, talking about like a little spirit. So the little spirit is from the bush and it gets called in to be a family. So that's the spirit being born. And then it's just the journey of how, like subliminal kind of messaging for how to like allow your children to be connected to themselves and connected to the land and listening to them and allowing them to be, I guess, free range is what I call my style of parenting. But just like connected to themselves. And it's going to be a very, very beautiful book. And the illustrations are just like so beautiful. So yeah, if you follow me on my socials and sign up for my emails, you'll be notified of the early release and the early bird, which will be the end of September, early October. And then it'll be officially released and out for sale by November.
Amazing. What a great Christmas present that'll be.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah.
And you also have your journal as well, which has been so beautifully done.
Oh, thank you.
So definitely, guys, check Miisha out. She's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you, Elle.
Well, this is your Earthside Spirit Guide signing off for the week. If you'd like to know more about how you can work with me, you can follow me on Instagram @l.embers or visit my website lembers.com.